Hi guys, my name is Adebayo Abdurafis. So in this video we will learn how to perform a database operation through the JavaScript. So this is the interesting part of the DordStream, whereby we introduce SQL query in order to perform a database operation through the JavaScript. So this is the interesting part of the DordStream, whereby we perform a database operation through the JavaScript, perform add, modification, retrieving, deleting from the database through the JavaScript. Now let's understand what they call SQL query, because we said we introduced a SQL query which we use to query the database. Now let's see what is SQL query. SQL query language is a standardized programming language that is used to manage relational database and perform various operations on the data in them. So this is the language which we use to manage a relational database. We know we have different types of database, but this query we use on a relational database, so to perform various operations on the data. That means the data that is in the database, like retrieving, adding, deleting, retrieving, modification. That means to modify. So that's the operation performed on the data. Now let's say structured query language is used for the following. Now we use it for number one for modifying database table and the index structure. That means we use to modify database table. Now that means to modify the content, the column, the rows. We also use to modify, and the index structure as well. Adding, updating and deleting rows of the data. Retrieving subset of information from within relational database management system. As SQL and other operations takes the form of command written as statement and are aggregated into programs that enable users to add, modify or retrieve data from the database table. So it is this SQL queries is a form of command written as a statement to query the database, to perform it, to run a query on the database. It is a informal statement. Now let's see, in the next we will say how I write the query in order to we see how I write the statement in order to query the database. And we all know we can't query the database without a database management system software which we use to perform to run the query on the database. Now we'll develop called DB connection, which is a database, which is JavaScript function, which creates a connection to the database, which get also an interface to run a queries on the database. And as I said, the database system software are used on the CMS is called DB connection. That means the database system we use on the CMS, which we use on the CMS is called DB connection, which is a JavaScript function. Now let's see what we call DB connection. DB connection is database management system software for relational database, which creates connection to the database for storing, retrieving, and running of queries on data. That means the DB connection is a database management system software which we use to create a connection with the database so that you allow us to run the queries as well. It serves as interface between the end user and a database, allowing user to create, read, update and delete data in the database. Let's see now. DB connection return DB context, which is used to modify, delete and retrieve data from the database through the queries. It is the DB context that executes the query on a database, but DB connection have to open the connection first before the DB context can execute the query, and the DB connection return DB context. Now let's see the syntax. Now we say DB connection is a software developed under JavaScript, it can be accessed through JavaScript. Yes, it is JavaScript function, so we can use it only through the JavaScript used to perform the database operation through the JavaScript. Now let's use syntax now. Say the syntax for creating or initializing DB connection. We use let DB connection. We use new keyword to create a function, to create a new function. We use a new keyword, use a new DB connection, which is a parameterless function. That means doesn't have any parameter. Now let's see the instance properties. This property we have called DB connection.state, which return the current state of the connection. I mean, it's return the current state of the connection to show us whether it has connecting or disconnected. Now we call DB connection.context. This context is, it will return a DB context which provide an interface for run of queries, I mean for execution of queries, adding modification and deleting from database. It is through the DB context. Through the DB context, the query can be executed. Now let's see the instance method now. The instance method we call DB connection.open, which has a callback as a parameter. This method open connection for database to accept queries. That means it is the open method that will open database to accept the incoming queries to execute the query. Because before you can execute the queries, the database has to be connected, has to be open already. Yeah, before you can accept any query. It is a void function. That means it doesn't return. It is a void function. That means it doesn't return anything. Callback is the function to be invoked when the connection is ready to accept the incoming queries. That means the callback, which is the parameter, is a function now. That means to be a function that will be invoked when it is connected. Now that means when the database open, and when the connection has connected or it has opened to accept the incoming queries, then that's when the callback will be invoked. Now let's see called DB connection.close. This method is to close the connection to the database. It's a fault connection. That means just for us to close the connection. Now let's see the DB context. The DB context is a software that manipulates data from the database, that is add, modifying, delete and retrieve through the queries. You know, we say DB context is an interface, or it's a software that executes the queries from the database. That is after the query, after the connection has been opened or has been connected, then that's why the DB context will execute the query. Now let's see the syntax. See the syntax for creating or initializing DB context. See let the DB context, as you also know, DB context is that means the DB context, it is part of property, which is the DB connection property. So you can only get the DB context through the connection, because it has to open before we can execute any queries on the database. Now let's see the instance method. It does not have any properties, but let's see the instance method of DB context now. Because DB context variable dot execute query, it has three parameters, which is query, the arrays of values, and the callback. They execute the query with the values and return callback function. That means to execute the query you write, which is the string, that means the query you write, to execute it with the values, that means with the assigned values, and return the callback function. That means to return the function when it is successfully executed. To return the function and return two parameters, which is done, and error, which is successful, to return true, it is also return false, and will specify the error through the error. Now let's say execute query can only execute add, modify, drop, and delete query. Now I mean it can only execute add, modify, drop, delete query. That is when we make use of execute query. That's when we are writing a query that has add keyword, modify keyword, drop keyword, and delete keyword. That's when we make use of execute query. The callback return the state of operation. It is return function with two parameters. That means the state, which is parameters, either successfully or not successfully. Whether it's executed successfully or not. You have return a done, which is the boolean type. About the error, which is the string data type. Now the done, it will return true if it is successfully executed, and error, which is successfully. If it doesn't execute successfully, the tone which is the boolean type will return false, and the error, which is the string data type, will specify the reason and which notifies the error. Now let's see the second one about DB.execute query reader. This execute query reader also takes 3 parameters, which is query, the arrays of values, and callback. Execute the query with the values and return the callback function. To execute with the value, yes, and return the callback function. It's also the same thing as execute query. The execute query reader can only be executed select query. I mean, the only time we will make use of the execute query reader is when we make use of select keyword. Is when we are using select keyword. That's why we make use of execute query reader. The callback return the values in array. I mean, to return the values of the reader and also the error, which is specify the error. Now it's return the function with the parameter reader. That means the reader should be in array. Have to return the array, which is the list of your value. Now let's proceed. Now let's see example now, or let's see how to write the queries now. Let me say creating of table, columns, and adding value queries. I mean, this query is for us to create a table, column, and adding value to it. Now let's see the query below. Create a table with the columns and inside the rows values if the table is not existing in the database. Otherwise it will inside the row, it will insert the row or the values. Now let's see the query now. The query add column 1 value 1, column 2 value 2, column 3 value 2 into the table name. What does this mean? The keyword add, it will add the table name. It will create the table name. If the table name doesn't exist, it will create it and add the values, add the columns with the value, add the columns with the value, add the columns with the value. If the table name is in existence, or if the table name exists in the database, it will insert the value to the assigned column. That's the main function of the query. Then that's what it's going to execute. And note, anytime you are working with add, it's always go with the keyword into. Then anytime you modify, always give the keyword of from. Anytime you are working with a select keyword, always go with from. You have to know the two keywords that goes together. Now let's say note, the keyword are not case sensitive. Yes, they are not case sensitive. I mean, you can write it in lowercase, uppercase, capitalized case. Let's see the example. The example says the snapped code below create student table. That means we have to create a student table that will have a name, age, and address as a column, and insert the values. If the student table, that means we insert the value now. If student table is not existing in the database, otherwise we'll insert it there. That means it doesn't exist, we'll create. If it does, then we'll insert it. Now let's see, now we'll make use of window.onload. Now then why do we make use of window.onload? We make use of window.onload because before the DB connection can open the connection to the database, the whole page has to be loaded completely, completely loaded. Because yes, that's why we make use of window.onload. Because if we don't make use of it, I want it to display immediately will access it won't connect to it. Now let's see a typical example of it. Let's see a typical example of it. Let's see a typical example. Now in the previous video, if you check in the video we made when we start explaining the DSSQL tag, which is the dot body, we created a simple template, and that's what we'll be using here to run the queries. Now let's open our first app. Let's open it through the Visual Studio Code environment. Now this is the simple one we've created already. Now we need to add a JavaScript because we only run we can only run the queries through the JavaScript. Now let's create a JavaScript folder. Let's name it JS. Now let's create a JavaScript file, then which let's just name it site. So you can name it any native, but let's name it site here.js. Now we've created the JavaScript. Now let's now let's add let's link the JavaScript with the index. Let's link it. So we used to link the JavaScript with scripts. Let's see the site. Let's go to now we've linked it. Now the next thing for us is to zip it and upload it on the CMS admin panel. Now let's see, let's zip it, come to send to, compress. Now we've compressed it. Now let's see, yes, come see, we've compressed it. Now let's come down to the CMS and let's add it to the themes. Let's refresh the page. Let's refresh the page. Now we already have the simple template here, but the one we have here, it doesn't have a JavaScript file. Then and we cannot upload a duplicate template here, so we have to delete the previous one. Then how can we delete the previous one? Then we'll go to where we host it, because we hosted it on our local machine through the IIS, which is the Internet Information Service. So we'll delete it. We will delete the template through the folder. Now let's go to the folder. Let's open this is the folder here. This is my own folder here. So you can use your own in any. For me, I'm using my own in desktop here. So you can use your own in any folder as well. Now let's open the DordStream, because this is where the CMS software. This is the code. Now let's see templates. Now we'll delete my first tab. Let's delete it. Now we've deleted it now, so we can now add the new template here. Yeah, as you can see, it's not there again. Now can I add it? Now let's add it. Let's add it. Let's see. It's here in desktop. This is my first tab. Okay. Now let's upload. Yes, the themes uploaded successfully. Now let's apply it to the software. Let's apply it to the software. Okay. So we'll click on apply. We'll wait for it to apply. Then once it's applied, to notify us. See, themes applied. So now let's come back here. Let's refresh the page. Let's refresh the page. So it has applied successfully now. Now the next thing is for us now to open the site file we created, the themes, the site JavaScript. The site JavaScript we created now, so that we can make an edit through the Visual Studio Code. Now let's open our Visual Studio Code. Let's go to File. Let's open it. Open File. Open File. So let's go to the folder where we host the software. That is DordStream CMS. I see DordStream CMS. DordStream. Let's see. So we see the file like www roots here. JavaScript. Then we see site. Yeah, so now we've opened the file. So any changes we made there, it will be reflected on this CMS now. Now let's see an example to create a table name, to create a table with columns and values using the queries. Now let's start now. Now first we know unload, so want the function to be executed when the Windows is already loaded. Now let's the first thing we'll do is to create. Let's create the DB connection. That's the first thing for us to do. Now to create it, let's do let keyword, call it DB connection, and using new keyword to DB connection to create the connection. And also we said it's a parameterless function, right? So it doesn't take any parameter. Now the next thing is we want to create. Now let's create the context. Now the DB context by using let keyword DB context, or this is DB context. That means to create the DB context, DB connection. Let's context now. Now we've created the DB context. Now we say the DB context, the one that we use to execute the query. Now the next thing is for us to let's open the connection. Open the connection for executing queries. Query frequency execute of queries or query. Now to open it, it's called DB connection open. I will set it. That's a callback function, as a function, as a parameter. Now let's see. Now let's write our query. So you can write our query inside the open, or we can also write the query outside the open. Now let's write it inside now. That is, if you're working on adding query, this is the query to add now. Now let's create, let our add query now. Add query now. Now we say to create a student table with the column name, age, and address, right? Now let's use the add keyword to add the name, to create the name and also add the value. And now we are using a call add with the identifier. Now it's just an identifier to identify the values of the columns where we are to be, so to identify the columns that the value will be assigned to. That's the essence of the identifier, which is the add keyword with the index. Now we have to add the age as well, which is the index, then the address. And note, you are making use of command, just the command to separate the columns and the value now. Now let's see 3 now. Let's add the name, age into the student table now. Then what is this query now does now? Now we said add name, age, address into the student now, to the student table. Now what we do is that this add keyword it will check the student table. If the student table exists in the database, then it will add the rows to it. That means to add the rows, that means to add the value to the columns. Then if the student doesn't exist in the database, it will create new student table and add the columns and add the value as well. Now let's execute it now. Execute query now. So I want to execute the query, and you see that we can only execute query through the DB context. Let's say to the DB context dot execute query. And we know JavaScript is a camel case. The camel case, I mean, is to start with small letter. As you can see, we write our execute query. Now let's add the function to it now. Now before proceeding, now we can write you can make use of we can write the execute function in two ways. That means the values. Now you can assign the values in two ways. Now let's first use the first method, and let's create an array of values. Let's see the first name. Let's name it someone. Then the age, let's use 12 as the age. Now the address we can use because it is a string now. Then let's use the address number 12, new extension, number 12 extension. So we are just using any address, Nigeria or new extension. So we are just using this as an example, right? Now let's execute this query, and let's see. Now see add query. Then add the values. Then also it also has the callback function, then which will notify us if that's successfully executed or not. And let's see, this is the error that will return if there is error. That means if the return is false. Now let's see. Let's check for the done now. Now let's save it. Let's press Ctrl S and save it and run it on through the browser, and let's see. What's going on? So I don't think let's see. It's nothing wrong with the queries, nothing wrong with anything. Now let's refresh the page, probably maybe, or let's see if so. It means let's check if it has successfully linked. Let's check it. Successfully linked. Successfully linked. It shows alerts at first. So the file is successfully linked. So it means there a big problem somewhere here. Okay, sorry. The DB connection name, as you can see it is not the correction of, it is not corrected. It is not correct. That means it's DB. We made a typographic error, the typing error, right? Which is DB connection. Now let's see. Let's do that. Let's see. Now as you can see, it said false. Then why is it false? Then we'll check. Then we'll check the error. Now let's see the error. Now let's see the error, and so that to notify us why the error. Now let's refresh it and let's see what caused the error. They say one or more as invalid column name. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake before proceeding. I've already created the student name here. I've already created a student table here which doesn't have an address as the column. That's why it's notifying me as incorrect. Now let's check the database studio. Let's check database studio. Let's refresh. Let's see. As you can see, we already have a student table here, which we don't have. As you see, as you can see, we only have the names and the age. Now let's delete it here, then so that the query will work, because they are having different column names now. Let's delete it. No, it won't delete. The reason why it doesn't delete is because we've linked it with we've created a relationship between the course, which is we've created the foreign key, which we have to delete the course first before we can delete the student. Now let's delete it. Now let's delete the student now. So now we can now come back and run our queries now. Now let's refresh the page. Let's refresh the page. As you can see now in this file, successfully that it has successfully create the table. And now let's come back here and let's refresh it. Let's refresh it. So as you can see now, you can see the table here. Now let's open the table and let's see the values and the columns. Let's open it. So this is the database studio. So now let's see, now we've created the ID. You know, the ID will be created by default. You have the name, the age, and the address. Now as you can see, the values been encrypted already. The value has been encrypted already. So this is the value. So now it has successfully, now we've successfully created the database. We've already created the table with the name, age, and address. Now let's use the second method and let's see what it gives us. Now let's use the second method. The second method is just for us to add the values directly as the parameters here. Let's add someone 1. Let's use 15 age, and let's add number 34 new road. So this is the address now. Now let's run the query. Don't forget that we don't use the value against, we assign the value as the parameters here. So now let's load the page and let's see. Now you can see it has successfully, that means we've successfully created. Let's see now. Let's see, this is the student. Let's select. Now as you can see now, this is that the student database already exists in database, but the query just inside the values to it. And once it sees that the database has the database is already exists in the database. Now let's see the second one. As you can see it, this is the second value. So see the two methods are working fine. So the two methods are working fine. Now let's go to the next example. Let's see. So let's go to the next example. So the next example is what? The next example is creating of table, columns, and adding values with the foreign key. That means we want to create a relationship between the two tables. Now the queries below create a table with the columns and inside the values and create a relationship with an existing table. If the table is not existing in the database, otherwise it will inside the values. Then if the table does not exist in the database, it will inside the values. Now let's see the query. Now the query says add column 1 is equal to value 1, comma column 2 is equal to value 2, comma column 3 is equal to value 3 into the table name. Then we'll have a join keyword which will join the two tables together. Then join, use the foreign table. That means the table want to join together, where the foreign table has to be existing already. That has to be, yes, it has to be in the existing database already, where the foreign column and the foreign value, you know, anywhere we see where it has to follow with the conditional expression or conditional statement as well. Let's see this. Note the keyword are not case sensitive, that is, it can be written in lower, upper, and capitalized. Example now, the snap code below creates student table with their names, age, address. That means we've created the student name before inside the values and create a relationship with the course. Then we want to create, and we want to have the course table to to add a relationship with the student. That means for each student to have their own course, and for each student to have their own course. That's then how we do it, to create a connection between, to create a relationship between the two tables by using the word foreign key. By using a foreign key. Now let's see the typical example of it now. Now we can, so say we should, let's see the example again, and let's see what I say we should use as the foreign key. Okay, yeah, we don't specify what we use as a foreign key, but here in the example we make use of the ID, which is the primary key now. So now let's see. Now let's use adding query with foreign key. Now we want to add this is the query that we'll add. I will query the table with the foreign key. Let's see, add query add foreign query now. I want to add the foreign query now. Now what we'll do is that we'll create the course now. Let's add the course. You add the name, the name of the course, then what? Then the title of the course now. Add the title of the course. See into the course table. So this is the course table. Then I want to join it with the student table. Let's join with the student table. Now what if we want to join with the ID, but we don't know the ID, instead of what to be showing the ID, and we want them to join it with maybe the specify age or the specify name of them. How can we do it now? In joining of the foreign key in using a foreign key, you know, you use it with a constraint key, either primary key or other unique key. It has to be a constraint key. Now let's see, now let's join table where. Now I want to use name. Now we want to join it with the name. I mean the name of the student. Now that's for example, because any key we will be using here we will be using here, it has to be a unique column with the values has to be unique. The reason why I didn't use ID, because if I use ID, we just run the query directly without any stress, without nothing. But now I want to have an alternative method that if you don't want to make use of the ID, because the ID is a primary key, it is already made by default is a primary key. But now we said we have to make use of a constraint key. That means the key, that means a column that has a constraint key. That's what we can use as the reference key now, which we can use the reference key to connect the two database, to create the relationship between the two database. Now I will make use of the name. Now I want to use the name column, and before we can make use of the name column, we have to either modify the primary key to the name column, or we add a unique key to the name column in order for us to create the relationship. Now let's say we say the name is what? A 3, right? So now let's see. Now let's we want to modify, sorry, we want to add a unique, key, query. As we said that you can only create a foreign key if the assigned key, that means the key you want to use is foreign key, sorry, it is primary key, then that's when you use it directly. But if you are using a column that doesn't have any key, the first thing for you to do is to add key to it. Then if you already have key on it, you can also modify. But now we don't have any constraint key on it. We only have the constraint key. We only have is on ID, which is the primary key. And now I want to make use of name. That I want to make you to link with the name. Now I want to create a relationship with the name. Now the first thing for us was to add the unique key to the name. You can make it in two ways. Is either we modify the primary key to the name, or we add a unique key to the name. Now I'm adding a unique key to the name. Now let's add unique key. Now let's add unique key. Let's add unique key query. let's see, we're using add keyword as well. Then using unique keyword. Then this open bracket we have to specify the column name which we want to add the unique to. Now we're adding unique to the name column. Now the column name. Then anywhere you see add, it go with into. That means into which table now? To the student table. Now I want to create it first because what we want to use to create the connection is from the student table. Now let's execute it and let's see. Now we are executing using the like adding of unique query. We don't need any values. Let's add unique queries. As you can see, we don't need any values. And let's save it and let's run it. Now, as you can see, now successfully run. We've successfully added. Now let's go to the studio and let's see student now. So just want to show it for you so that you see what we are doing. Let's see. Let's check for the key now. As you see, you can see we have a unique key, which is the U key, which is the student key now. And see, you have the unique key on the name now. So let's see the name now. So you can see you have the unique key on the name. So now let's proceed now. Now we've created the unique key now. Now we've added the unique key to name now. Now let's run the funny key now. So we said we want to add where the name is someone. If we are using this value, where the name is someone. Now let's clear this first. So we can use each, but here we are using name. You can use any column. There's any column, but we say the column has to have a constraint key, either a unique or primary key. That means you have to first add or modify the keys. Now let's add the title. Let's the title GNS 101. That's the course title. Now let's add that's the course name. Let's add the course title as introduction to English language. Then this is the name. This is someone. That means we are assigning a rows that has someone, that is that we are assigning a student name. Someone want to assign this course, that the student name someone will offer this course. Now let's add foreign query. We are adding the values. So now let's run it. Let's see. So you can see now successfully created. That means we've created it. Sorry. Let's see. Let's refresh it. As you can see now, you see the course. Let's check for the key. You see, you have the primary key of the course. You have the what? This is the foreign key. UDF key. Let's see the column. We have the name. We have the title with the student ID. So this is the ID to use to create the connection. So now let's proceed. Now we've created the relationship between the two tables now by using a called join keyword. It's the join keyword that will join the two tables together. The table name after join the table has to be existing, to be in existence. That means it has to be in existence in the database. Now let's proceed now. Now let's proceed. Let's proceed now. Now this is called adding unique key to the column of an existing database. Yeah, I think we've done that. Say the query below add a unique key to the particular or specified column name of an existing table in the database, which we use called add unique the column name, that's to be in the bracket, into table name. Note the keyword are not case sensitive, that is, can be written lower, upper, and capitalized. Now the example I see the snap code below add the unique key to name. As we said, we add the unique key to name in the student table, which use this code. Now let's show. Now we've done it already here. As you can see, this is the adding of the unique query, which we add a unique query, which we add a unique key to name in order for us to create the connection to have a foreign key. So that is it. Now let's move on to the next example. Let's add an example here. It's called adding columns of an existing table query. That means this is the query for us to add a table name. That means we want to add a new table to an existing table. We want to add a new column, to an existing table. The query below add a new column to an existing table in the database. Let's see the query. Now the query use add, which is the column, then in a bracket now have a column name. The column name has to be inside the bracket into the table name. Note the keyword are not case sensitive, that is, it can be written in lower, upper, and capitalized. Now let's see the example cycle below. Add the registration date to the student table. That means we want to add the registration date to the existing table. Now let's add the registration date, and let's see. And note that when you are adding the let's add the registration date first to the existing table. Okay, now let's add a column, add a new column, or let's see add column. So there was existing table. I want to add a column to the existing table. Now let's see add column query. Let's add a column query now. Now let's see. We say we are making use of add keyword, then the column name, the column which is we want to add the column to be in a bracket. We have to add the column name, which name we want to add. We want to add a registration date, registration date or register date. Let's see registration date. Now registration date. Now add registration date into, you have to have into the keyword, into the table. That means the student table. I want to add it there. We want to add it into the student table. Okay, now let's add this and let's run it. Add column query. Then let's use it. Let's add the. Okay, now we don't have any value because here if you create a new column, doesn't have value. It's create a new column. Now let's run it. And let's see what it gives us. As you can see now, it's successfully created. Now let's go to the studio and let's see. That means we've added a new table name. We've added a new column to the table. Just refresh. Let's select it now. So as you can see now, if we've created a new column with null value, and note in this query it doesn't allow a null value in the database, so we have to assign a value to it. Let's assign the value to it. Yes, let's assign the value to it. Now let's leave it for now. Let's leave it now because we'll still assign the value to it when we move on to another example. Now let's see we've adding queries. I mean to add a new table. About add for the foreign query, the unique as well, and add the query and add the column. Now let's proceed to the next example. Let's see the next example. This next example says modifying rows of an existing table. Now let's say I want to modify rows of an existing table query. Now that is, want to make a change to the rows. And let's see the query below. Modify the rows of the specified column name and condition from an existing table in the database. That means before we can modify, it has to meet up with a certain condition before we can modify. Let's see the query now. We use a modify keyword. Column 1 is equal to column 2, comma, column 2 is equal to, value 1, comma, column 2 is equal to value 2, comma, column 3 is equal to value 3 from the table name. That means you have to have, and I have said it earlier, that anytime you see modify, it has to go with from keyword. That means modify and from keywords, they go together. The table name, which we are not said anything that comes after where is what is conditional expressions or conditional statements. Right? Let's now note the keyword are not case sensitive. That is, it can be written lowercase, uppercase, and capitalized. And where is a conditional keyword? We all know that where is a conditional keyword which can be used with what we can use with it is equal to, not is equal to, greater than, less than, and or operator. That's what we can use it in here. As you can see here we make use of is equal to, so you can use any, can use not is equal to, greater than, less than, and on or. Now let's see the example. Modify the name, address where the age is 12 from the table. Now we can modify the name, we modify the address now, but in this example now we are modifying the registration date now, because I want to modify, because of created registration, I want to modify the registration date here. Where the age, we have the age of 12, the age of 13 now. We can also modify it through the name. Let's modify it through the name, or age we can modify through any of it now. Now let's use through the age now. We are just using this as an example, because in a real world now you can have a student, you can have like 5 or 6 students, like even more than 7, that have the same age, that they have the same age. Then which if you make use of the age, it will to change everything, because they have the same age. But now in so that's why we want to say in a real world now, when we are making to go live, we will rather use the primary key, or we have a unique key for us that which we use to modify a particular row, so that to affect the others now. So now let's see. Let's modify row now. We want to modify row query now, because we are using this just for tutorial. Now let's see, modify row query. And you know JavaScript is in camel case, right? Now let's see, modify. Let's modify now. I want to modify the registration date now. Let's modify the registration date, which is 1. We want to modify it from, because anywhere you see modify, goes from what student now, at where which condition. That want to specify the condition which we want it to modify now. And let's see where the age now is equal to what, 2 now. That means we want to modify it now. So we can make use of this value, or we can also use it directly now. Now let's use it directly now. Now let's see, let's use modify. And always know that now that we are working with modify, add, and add, we are making use of execute query, not execute query reader now. Now we are making use of execute query. Now let's add the new date now. Let's add the current date now. So let's add the current date now. Now I want to modify it now. Now for the current date now, which condition? Let's see, let's add when the age is 12 now. I want to modify when the age is 12. Now let's run it. Now as you can see now, successfully that has modified it. Now let's see, let's refresh the student, and let's see. As you can see now, it has modified it. And see, so they give us encrypted. Well, now let's modify the second one, because as I said earlier, As I said earlier, this doesn't allow a null value in a database. Now let's make change. Let's modify for the when the age is 15 as well. Let's modify when the age is 15. As you can see, it's successfully now. Now let's refresh and see it. So as you can see now, we've successfully modify the date now. We've modify the date, session date. Now let's proceed to the next example. Let's see. Now what the next example says? The next example says we should modify the primary keys to a column now of an existing table. Now that means we want to change the primary key from hiding to a specified column name. Now let's see the query below modify the primary key to the specified column name from an existing table from in the database, right? Let's see now. Let's see the keyword. The keyword says modify primary. We have to use a modify keyword. Modify to bracket the column name which we want to modify it to from the table name. Note the keyword are not case sensitive. It can be written lowercase, uppercase, and capitalized. The example snap code below change the primary key to name from the course table. Now I want to change the primary key now to the name now. And don't forget to use the name as a foreign key now. Now we can also make the changes now. Now let's modify it to H to another because we've used the name as unique key. But you can also modify it due to the name as well. But for the tutorial sake, let's use another column now. Now let's modify primary key now. Now let's modify primary key now. And let's modify primary key now. Let's say modify primary. We are using age. We want to modify primary of age from what? Student table now, right? Student table. Now let's run it and let's see. Modify primary key now. so we can also modify it to name as well because we've also used the name. The unique key. Want to use another one so that we can modify it. Now let's run it. Let's see now we've successfully modified the primary key now. Now let's refresh this and check it. Let's see it now. Let's check for the key. As you can see now, you see this is the primary key. Let's see the column now. As you can see now, we've changed primary key from the ID. You know, we created ID by default. It's now to the primary key is now in H now. And note that any column you are using for the primary or unique key has to add a unique value. That means it must not add the same value. It has a unique value. So now let's see we've successfully modified the primary key by using the primary keyword modify with primary from the table now. Now let's move on to the next example and let's see. The next example says we should modify the unique keyword now. Now I want to modify the unique keyword. The query below modify the unique keyword to the specified column name from an existing table in the database. That means the table has to be existing already and the column has to be in existence already before we can make use of before we can modify the unique now. Modify a unique column name from the table name. That is the query. Modify the unique, then in a bracket the column name bracket from the table name. Note the keyword are not case sensitive. It can be written lower, upper, and capitalized. So the example of this now code below change the unique key to age from a student's table. Now we want to change the unique key now to age now. Now we make use of the unique key here, which we use as as foreign key now, so now we cannot modify it now. Now let's write the query and let's see it will show us error. And let's see modify unique name, modify unique key. We have to modify unique key query now. So now before you can modify any unique query, you have to have a unique query already in the database. Now we have to assign tag in the table. Sorry, in the table we have to have it. Now let's see we have a unique table in the name column now in the student table now, but we can't modify it because we've used the name as a reference to other table which we use as a foreign key for cost. Now let's make it and let's see the error to show to show error. Let's see modify unique key now. Let's modify unique key. Let's see modify unique. Then let's see name. As I said earlier, that before you can modify a unique key, that means you have to have a unique key already in the table. Now let's see, we've already have the unique key in the column name, which is the column which is name. That's why we've already added it already. Now we want to modify the name now, but because we've used the name as the foreign key now, so that's why we cannot modify it now. Let's modify it to age now to give us error because we've used the name as a reference now, so it can be used, so it can be modified now. Let's see modify unique. Now let's run it and let's see what it gives us. So to see one or more questions constraint, that it has been used as it's been referenced by table cost. Now if we use it as a reference table cost, then that's why we can't make use of it now. But I think we don't reference the unique query column now, then we can modify it now. The reason why we can't modify this because if you use it as a reference to another table, then that's why we can't modify it now. Now let's go to another example. Called delete row from an existing. Now if we want to delete a row now from an existing table, now then we want to delete a row with a given condition. Now let's say the query below delete row with given condition from an existing table in a database. Delete from table where the column 1 value 1, and we also have and or the column 2 value 2. So we can delete based on two expression based on two condition. We can delete based on two condition. We can modify based on two condition as well. Note the keyword are not case sensitive. That is, it can be written lower, upper, and capitalized now. And where is a condition keyword which can be used with is equal to, not is equal to, greater than, less than, and or operator. Now let's see example now. There's another example here below delete row where the age is 12 from the student table. Now let's delete the row where the age is 12 now. Let's delete the row where the age is 12. Let's see. Now we can't delete the row here where the age is 12 because we've assigned the foreign key to the particular row. Now we said we had a cost table which we assigning to a particular to a student with age of 12. Then that means we cannot delete it. Before we can delete it, we have to delete it first from the cost table. We have to freeze first from the cost table before we can delete it here in the student table. But we can delete the second row because we haven't assigned it. We haven't assigned the second row because we haven't referenced it to another table now. And let's see delete row query. Let's see, delete row now. Query now. I want to delete a particular row with, that means with condition, and that means you have to delete it with condition. Now let's see, we are using a delete keyword. Delete from the table, which is the student table. We want it from the table now, where the what, where the now I'm using two conditions now. So that you also, so that you can also make use of, you can also use it to condition to perform, to, yes, you can also make it to condition as well. Now let's see, now I'm using two conditions here, and let's say delete from student, where the number one, let's see, first use where the name, and can use and or. That's only two keywords you can use here to when you are working with two conditions. So I use and or you use or. Now use and h now. So I want to delete particulars row that satisfy these two conditions. I want to delete that satisfy what the two conditions here. Now let's execute it. Delete query. Now let's specify the first name. This is this someone 1, and the age was 15. That means the two conditions has to be satisfied before the query can be executed. Now let's run it and let's see. As you can see now, it has successfully. Now let's see, that means we have to remove the second one because we didn't link the second one with the, because we didn't reference the second rows now. So we only reference the first row. As you can see now, so we've deleted it. So we cannot delete this one because we've referenced it. Now let's try it and let's take the error to give us. Let's see the error to give us. The first one is someone 1, the age will be 12 now. And let's try it and let's see the error to give us. Can you see now, say one or more error occurred, the delete statement conflict with the reference. Consider means it has been referenced already. That means in a what course table now. So we can delete it now. We have to first delete it from the course table before we can delete it here. Now let's proceed now. Let's proceed to the next example. Now let's now say we want to use the called drop unique key. Now that means we want to remove the unique key from a column of an existing table. Now the query below remove the unique key from an existing column. Then if we want to remove the unique key from an existing table, now let's say the drop unique column name from the table name. Note, the keyword are not case sensitive, that is, it can be written lower, upper, and capitalized. Now let's see the example. Now the example says snap code below remove the unique key from the age in the student table. Now let's see now in the example here now to reference the unique key here. So we've referenced the unique key here as a reference. Now we've referenced it to another table as a foreign key, and so we can't remove it. Now let's see the error to give us. Let's drop unique key now. Drop unique key query. Now let's drop it now. Let's see. Drop unique key now. Query. Now I want to drop unique key query now. Now you're using drop. That is dropped unique. Then the what? We want to drop the name now, which is the column now. You know, we said before we can modify and drop a unique key, it has to be, that means if we have to have the unique key in that particular table we are working on. And let's see in the table from what? The student table. And we know we already had a unique key here in the name table, which we reference, to which we use as a foreign key. Now let's use it and let's see what it does. It will give us error because we've used it because we've used it as foreign key. Now let's load it and let's see. As you can see, now shows one or more error which the unique key is being referenced by the table, because we use a foreign key. That means that's being used as foreign key, so we can't drop it. So now we know we can't drop it, but we can only drop and modify unique key that we don't reference now. Now for us to in order for us now to drop the unique and modify the unique key, we have to delete the cost table. Then once we delete the cost table, so we are not using it as a reference anymore. Now let's continue to the next example. So the next example says drop column from the existing table. Now that means we want to drop the column. The queries below delete a specified column from an existing table in a database. That means to drop the column, want to remove the column from the table. Now let's see now the keyword are not case sensitive, that is can be written lowercase, uppercase and capitalized. The example is now called below remove the registration date from the student table, and that is we want to remove the student table who added. Now let's remove the column. Now let's go to drop column query. Now let's drop column query. Now I want to drop the column query. Make use of drop keyword, then the column, which is specify the column name which you want to drop. Choose the registration date. Now you want to drop the registration date from what? From the student table. Now so now let's run it and let's see. Drop column query. Now let's run it. As you can see now, successfully. That means we've dropped it. Now let's refresh it and let's see it. Let's refresh it. The student. Let's see it. So as you can see now, we've dropped the registration date. So the registration date is not there anymore. We only have the ID, the name, the age and the address. So that's all what we have for now. Now let's move on to the next example. Next example says here, it says selecting rows from an existing table. Now it is here we will retrieve from the database. This is where we retrieve from the database. I will retrieve the value one from the database. Now the query below select rows from an existing table in the database. That means the table has to be in an existence now in the database now before we can select, before we can retrieve it. Now for us to retrieve it, we'll make use of select keyword. We have got this example of the code I got select all from the table. That means to select everything from the table. That will make use of select all. Select is a keyword, all is a keyword, from is a keyword. The table now we select all from the table. The second one, you can also use that you want to specify the count of the value we want to retrieve. Now let's say select 20 from the table name. Now we are the condition 1 and the condition 2. Now I want to select the 20. It will only select 20. It will only select the 20 values, not all. So let's select the 20 values where those conditions are satisfied now before it should select the 20 for us now. Now let's see the notes now. Note now, the keywords are not case sensitive. That is, it can be written lowercase, uppercase and capitalized. And where is a conditional keyword which can be used, that means you can use it with either is equal to, let's see now, when we use here we use column 1 is equal to value 1. That you can also use column 1 not equal to value 1, greater than value 1, less than value 1. That's the keyword we can use with here. And here also we use and here, so we can also make use of or as well operator. Now let's see the example. As example here, so we'll select all from the student table. Now let's select all now from the student table and let's see what's going to give us. Now let's see, select all from students table. Now let's select all from the student table, and now let's select based on the condition as well. Let's select let's see, select all. Now that means we want to select all now. And let's select all by using the word called select keyword with all as well. Select all from what? Student or student now. So now we are not making use of this again. Let's turn it to statement because we are not making use of it again. Now I want to execute the reader. Execute query reader. Query reader. That's what to execute the query reader now by using the DB context to execute the query reader. Execute the query reader now. Now let's select query. Select all. Let's select all query now. Select all query. So let's the callback. This will return the array of the reader. Yeah, this will return the error. If to specify the error. Now let's see. Now let's loop the reader now. Set off for each now. That's for each now. Now let's let it display. Let it shows the student name. Let it shows the student. Let it shows the student age. I want it to show us what? The student address as well. And note we are using camel case in JavaScript here. As you can see the name is in small letter, age in small letter. We are using a camel case. So now let's run it and let's see. Now let's run and let's see. So as you can see now, display the first name, which is someone, then the age is 12, then the address is number 12 extension house. Now because we already have one content here, as you can see, that's why we only display one false. I think we have more than one to display one false. Now let's select all based on condition now. Select all from. Let's select all based on condition now. Based on condition. Then I want to select now where the age is 12. Now you can select everything where the age is 12 now. Now let's select query condition. Now let's see. Let's select all. I want to select all from student where the age. Select from the condition now where the age is 12, right? So let's see. Let's select. Not select all query. Let's select query condition where the age is what? Where the age is 12 now. Now let's see. Let's reload the page. As you can see now, it shows the name to someone. The age is 12. It shows everything that just shows all the values that has age of all the student that has age of 12. All the student that age of 12. It shows everything now. Now let's see for the count as well. Let's change this analysis to display us like 5 or 4. That means if you have more than, if you have like 20 that have 20 students with that age of 12, I want to retrieve like 4 of it. Now let's see. Because we only have one content here, to only display one here. As you can see, to only display one because we have one as well.